Hello and welcome back to Good Game Nation, where we bring you all things TCG. My name's Preston, and today we are talking about the most recent website updates and Twitter/X updates from the official sources. And we got quite a good one. We got a lot of new stuff this week, and quite a few things on the website to talk about, all on the official Japanese website. So let's jump into our first one here. It's our first look at the OP09 pack art, as well as a little brief of what's going to be in the pack. The four emperors make up their grand appearance in the One Piece card game. Characters from One Piece Odyssey will also be joining the battle. So we get our four emperors, and then we're going to get Odyssey cards. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I think out of all of the stuff that they've done so far, this pack art kind of feels like it's lacking. We've had some really cool, like, just duo character stuff with, like, the alt secret stuff, alt arts for, like, the secrets or the super rares, and they've looked really nice. And this just, it doesn't even pull off the same effect as, like, the art from this page did. So it is what it is, but we have a date. I don't know if we had it before, August 31st in Japan. We are getting this full set, so we have around 2 months to preview the somewhere around 120 cards, which it usually is. Plenty of time to review everything, preview everything. Moving on to our next story. Second year anniversary premium product is being announced, and it's quite a substantial amount of stuff. Last year, I think it was a mat and a couple promo, like reprints, alt arts for, I think, like the best voted cards or whatever, which was like Otama and that type of stuff. This year, we're getting quite a few things. We're getting a mat box, deck box, dice, sleeves, and I think it's like 9 cards that are, I think they're alt arts from their sets, but with different backgrounds. And we can get a little bit of a closer look at the products because they posted it on Twitter as well. Deck box, 4 dice. Really interesting to see them include dice because I haven't seen a reason really for dice. Like, I use them for keeping track of stuff, but there hasn't really been a big need for them, so it's really interesting. Sleeves, 70 card sleeves, so they're quite a bit, so you can fill out your whole deck and your Dawn. Really nice mat box, and I think this is an extended deck box. I'm not sure. It looks like the deck boxes they give for tournaments, but bigger and nicer. And now we have the cards here. So all of them are, except for Big Mom, because I mean, she's gaining popularity, but are cards that have been really popular so far. Maybe not the Luffy. I'm going to say that a lot because these are newer cards that I am not sure what their playability is, but the rest of them have seen. Okay, Resonante. I'm not making a good point of this. I just keep looking back and thinking, yeah, that card wasn't played at all, Resonante, right? Or is this a different one? Either way, there's quite a few cards here, and Ace, Zoro, Sanji, Sabo are all of their, I believe they're alt art arts, but on a different background. Then you have Kaya, which looks like her winter promos art with a different background. And the reason I'm confused about the Rocinante is because he looks like his secret alt art, but he's the 2-cost blocker. So I'm not sure why that card was included at all. And then you have Sabaody with just the Sabaody art, Searcher from set 1 with its just plain art with a different backdrop. Really weird inclusion for me. I'm not sure why that's there at all. Just a weird add-on for an event to be in this set with the rest of these cards here that are like pretty high caliber characters that were highly played. In any case, we also get an English announcement which puts the price at $180 US, which is quite substantial for this. I think that's a pretty high price for people to get this. And I know that the premium products are nice, but I mean, you're getting like secrets and highly playable cards with like good alt art backdrops and stuff like that. It's something that you'll have to determine on your own if this is worth it to you. I will put the English link in my description down below so that when this link becomes active and you can actually go to the premium website to pre-order, it'll be there, and we'll probably talk about it again when it gets closer to a pre-order. Delivery month is March of next year, so pre-order will start around 6 months before that, I think, maybe a little bit longer. But as for products and product announcements, I think that's everything. We'll move into card reviews at this point, and the first one we're going to talk about is a Marco promo. Marco, blue character, 4-cost 6k power, Whitebeard Pirates. When KO'd, you may put this character card into your hand. Interesting. No counter, so putting it back into your hand isn't for that purpose, but you have Marco Leader, which is going to play stuff off the top of your deck, so you might be able to put it back to your hand, put it at the top of your deck, play it for free. But overall, I think it's an interesting card, if not playable based off of the current meta. But I want to keep it on the radar because if anything starts to pop off with red-blue Marco, this is just another card to keep in mind because it does have playability. It is a 6k attacker, which is pretty strong in general. So interesting place to start, I think, for this week's promo look. Next thing up, we have the rest of the SRs for our starter decks. Got them in 2 images, so we'll jump across and try to get through them pretty quickly because there's 6 here. There's more stuff to talk about as well. So let's go left to right, starting with Edward Newgate. Edward Newgate, red character, 7-cost 8k power, 4 Emperors, Whitebeard Pirates. On play, give your leader or one of your characters. On play, give your leader or one of your characters up to 1 Rested Dawn. Activate main. You may rest this character, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. So it's an on play, give a Rested Dawn. Red does that. It's pretty cool. And then a guaranteed KO of a 5k or less as an activate main on a 7-cost 8k. No counter, that's okay. Whitebeard generally wouldn't have it, right? Thinking of like usability, on play effects are the fastest we get, so being able to immediately play it and gain a Dawn to somebody, one of your attackers or your leader, is great. And then being able to KO with it, a guaranteed KO, is great. And then the next turn, if it's still there, attacking as an 8k or KOing another 5k. Being able to minus power in red, there's a possibility that this is quite substantial. And then I believe it fits within the playability of red-blue Marcos, like sanji spamming type of stuff, I think. So it has a lot of playability for red-blue Marco. I'm curious of where it would actually fit in straight red, like Whitebeard or Ace, but they're kind of like rogue decks at this point, even though they're extremely strong still. But let's move on to Uta. Uta, green character, 4-cost 6k power, film. Blocker, activate main once per turn. You may trash 1 film type card from your hand, give your leader or up to one of your characters up to 1 Rested Dawn. Okay, so we're seeing a pattern here. We're giving out Rested Dawn with these cards. I wonder how many of them actually do that. I'm guessing a majority. I only skimmed them, so I can't remember all of their effects. A blocker, 6k blocker is great. Utas often end up being really strong blockers, so that's cool. And then activate main is still a pretty fast effect, and it's not tapping her, it's not resting her or anything like that, so that's good also. So you still get the blocker ability. Overall, I think it's a good card, and the film deck, I don't know how tight its build is, but I feel like this is a decent card, being able to reuse your your rested Dawn resource, and then also being able to be a really decent blocker. I think it has a lot of potential there. Moving on to the last one of the slide. Trafalgar Law, blue character, 4 cost 5k power, 7 Warlords of the Sea, Heart Pirates, 1k counter. On play, you may return one of your characters to its owner's hand. If your leader has the 7 Warlords of the Sea type, return up to 1 4 cost or lower character to its owner's hand. Okay, so deviating from the rest of Dawn to do law stuff. That's super cool. Return himself to the hand, and then return your opponent's card to their hand. Seems extremely good. If you're playing Dofi with this card, I think you can play him off the top of your deck. Yeah, you can play it off the top of your deck with the Dofi Leader effect, which makes it a little bit more free. And then there's also the removal, which is great. So I think this is overall a really good card. I think it ends up seeing a lot more play than I don't know. There's no comparison here because everything so far has been, I feel like, a playable card, and I know that Dofi is regaining popularity, so that deck's probably getting really tight because it's been getting a lot of like little things here and there. So it depends on what the play style of that deck is, but being able to pick itself up, still have counter, remove something else from the board, which isn't a KO, just removed from field, is great, and then potentially being able to cycle it back into the board with some shenanigans. But the first 3 cards here, I feel like they're quite playable. They're nice SR level cards for the starter decks. We can move on to our next set of 3, and we'll start again left to right with Zoro. Zorojo, purple character, 4 cost 6k power, Straw Hat Crew. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 purple Straw Hat Crew type card, and put it into your hand. Then place the rest of the cards in the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's a Zoro Searcher, 4 cost 6k power, quite a strong attacker afterwards, which is great because a lot of the Straw Hat Searchers are Nami and they don't have power, minus Film. Film Nami is great. But being able to be a Zoro gives the creators an ability to make the Searcher strong, which is cool. With that being said, it's an on-play Searcher, which is great, and we can think deeper, as it says in the translation on the Discord, a Straw Hat type card, and it's purple. So that's what kind of throws me off. I wish it was just a Straw Hat type card. They're doing this recently where it's very specific, which kind of sucks for like the red purple Luffy that would want to play some red Straw Hat stuff and you can't. But it doesn't say anything about not picking himself up, so there's some give and take there. You could search as Zoro off of Zoro, which is interesting. But in general, it's just a Searcher with a lot of power and no counter. So I think it's interesting. I like it, but that might also be my Zoro bias. Moving on to Hina. Hina, black character, 4 cost 6k power, Navy. Dawn ×1 during your opponent's turn. This character has +4 cost. Activate main. Once per turn, you may place 1 card from your trash onto the bottom of your deck. Give your leader up to one of your characters up to 1 rested Dawn. So we're back on the plus power thing. It's really interesting. It's an opponent's turn thing, so it's very defensive. So if you attach a Dawn to it on your turn, she is an 8 cost 6k power, which makes it a lot more sticky than if it was a 4 cost, which is really cool. I feel like it, depending on what deck you're playing against, that's going to be extremely helpful to keep this on board and give your leader more rested Dawns, or even use her effect to keep herself up at 8 cost on your opponent's turn. Super cool. Again, I don't know what its playability is without counter. It is a strong card, so it has the ability to do something, but as it doesn't really fit like what we were doing with other black decks with like extremely strong minuses to KO, and this is kind of slower and going in another direction. I don't know where it fits in current decks, but it could definitely have a place somewhere because it has a very unique and good effect in general. But yeah, let's move on to this Katakuri. Katakuri, yellow character, 5 cost, 6k power, Big Mom Pirates, 1k counter. Blocker, activate main once per turn. You may turn the top card of your life face up. Give your leader or up to one of your characters 1 Rested Dawn. Okay, so still on the Rested Dawn thing for these, and the cost being a yellow thing where you lift life face up. When it comes to yellow, I'm a little bit more picky because there's better things you can do by turning your life face up, and I don't know if this hits list. Just like the Hina, I don't know how it fits in current decks, but doesn't mean it doesn't fit in another deck, because using those resources is good, but it might not be the best thing you can do with a 5 Dawn turn. It does have counter and blocker, and it could be anything else, and that's the hard part, is yellow's been so good at what it does. When I start to think of things it could do, it gets a little bit more tricky. Whew, okay, let's move on to the next thing. This is Sanji from the best collection that is coming out shortly. It has a lot of reprints and is coming with a leader. I don't know if this is the only leader, and I know that there's a lot of reprints that are coming out of it, and I don't know how much is going to be reprint and not. We've seen quite a few reprints. Chopper, and like starter deck Chopper is going to be in it, and I think the SR from set 1 of Luffy is going to be in it, and there's a lot of other reprints. Shanks Secret and Mihawk SR from set 1. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff, but let's move on to this leader card, which is quite interesting. Sanji, Red Leader, 5 life, 5k power, Straw Hat Crew. Activate main once per turn. Up to one of your 8 cost or lower characters without an on-play effect gain Rush until the end of this turn. That is super freaking cool. This is a super interesting effect. As long as your character does not have on-play, it can now have Rush. And it only happens once, so you only get 1 per turn, but why else do you need to give it more than once? Like, how often are you really playing like 4 characters in a turn? And 4 impactful characters that you want to attack immediately. You already have Rush characters in red too. So this leader is so interesting, and building a deck around the fact that anything can attack the turn you play it is super cool. And I can't wait to start building with this leader, and I know people are already looking at it because vanillas don't have an on-play. So your really strong red vanillas from Whitebeard Pirates now attack the turn they hit the board. That's extremely scary, I think. Being able to attack with a big, powerful character out of nowhere is really scary, because then you could still follow it up with a Rush Zoro or something like that. So that's really exciting. Really like this leader. Really want to see what people do with it, and I hope that it makes red scary in its own right, because it's fallen off with a lot of the good decks that have been being played lately. And I'm more talking about not red purple law, because I feel like that's its own thing. I'm talking about mono red. I'm talking about like red as its core with like Whitebeard stuff, which I don't think has been good since Whitebeard left its influence. Granted, purple and red law is doing extremely well right now, and purple hasn't historically done well either. So we're getting a lot of interesting changes in the meta, and I think it's setting up for a really interesting thing to come. The interesting thing to come might not be this Lim though. Lim, Green Leader, green purple leader, 4 life, 5k power, Odyssey. Your characters enter play as rested. Activate main once per turn. You may rest 3 of your Dawn, set up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as rested, then play a 5-cost or lower Odyssey type character from your hand. So this is super interesting. I don't know if it's good though. It's tough. So very tough to gauge based off of just the leader. Because what we have here is a leader that brings your cards in vulnerable. You can lose characters before you get to use them because they're coming in rested. You also get a ramp and an iceberg style play. So play a card from your hand that's 5 or less. So it's doing a lot of things, which makes it hard to play around. But if we look at like the cards that are going to be part of it, which we have 2 cards that are coming from a deluxe edition, which I'm really interested to see what they do with this in the US, how they're going to distribute these, because I don't know if they'll actually be in the game, because that makes it extreme. Like this in the first part is just a really hard thing to do, because I feel like people could buy 4 games and then return the game for whatever reason and just take the special cards out of it, and then I don't know, I don't like it. But what we can do real quick is talk about these 2 characters. Lim, green character, 2 cost, 0 power, Odyssey, 1k counter, blocker. End of your turn, if you have 2 or more Odyssey type rested characters, set this character as active. Adio, green character, 4 cost, 5k power, Odyssey, 2k counter. If you have 2 or more Odyssey type rested characters, this character gains plus 1000 power. So just looking at the leader, bringing cards out as rested, and then looking at 2 of the support that are coming as promos, we know that the rest of the set is going to have this type of thing as well, where at the end of your turn, if you have rested characters, do a thing, or if you have rested characters, do a thing, or whatever. If this card comes into play rested, do a thing. Those are the types of things that we can expect, and they're really interesting to show that off with a blocker that has 0 power that's coming into play rested and then going to be reset at the end of the turn, so that it can be a blocker, and a card that comes into play. And the interesting thing is the Adio is a permanent effect. It doesn't have any conditions to it, so it's going to be 1,000 power. It's going to be 6,000 power defensively on that first turn. So it's really interesting, and it puts this leader into an interesting place. And I'm guessing it's going to get a decent amount of support because it has nothing currently, really. Yeah, I don't think there's any green-purple Odyssey stuff. I think it was in red before. So it's really coming in fresh, and it has to compete with possibly giving some of its space into green support from the last set or purple support from the last set and get its own thing. That's what like yellow failed in the previous set. So we'll have to see how much support it actually gets to see if it's going to be playable, and then see if it just doesn't get outshined by stuff like our next card here. Or any of the other 4 emperors that I feel like are going to all have really good effects. Let's see what this Teach does. Marshall D. Teach. Black Leader. 5 life, 5k power, 4 emperors, Blackbeard Pirates. Your on-play abilities do not activate. Activate main, you may trash 1 card from your hand until the end of your opponent's next turn. Your opponent's on-play abilities do not activate. This is super interesting, and I don't think there's anything like this yet in the game. There's some weird stuff, like we just saw Lim has a permanent ability of coming in rested. Now we're permanent effect, your on-play abilities don't work. We had stuff like Whitebeard early on that like takes life away, and that was kind of its thing. I'm guessing that this might have similar things as the Whitebeard leader, where there's going to be an event that says, actually, on-play abilities do happen. Negate that part of our leader's ability. Get my on-play abilities, and then activate its main, or like another card that says, other cards that enable the activate main to be good, so your opponent doesn't get their on play abilities, but you get yours. So I feel like that's going to be a part of its thing, where you're going to be able to play a card, negate that part of your effect, activate this card's main, and screw over your opponents. So it takes away the fastest abilities in the game, which is on plays, which leaves our activate mains and our on attacks, which is really interesting to see in the same time period as we get this sanji, because this sanji isn't going to play probably any on play effects. There might be a few. There's some really good ones, so there might be a few. But yeah, it's a super interesting thing to get as a contrast immediately in the same week. I really like this leader. Finding what it's going to do is going to be super cool. My expectation is cards that negate that part of its effect so that it can do its own on plays. I think that's the first peek at what could be possible with this. But in the long run, being able to once per turn trash a card from your hand and slow your opponent's turn, being able to go first and stop your opponent from using on play searchers on turn 1 is scary. I'm just thinking of like your searchers that are on play that you won't be able to activate, and just to slow your opponent's play. So this deck will also need a decent amount of draw so that you don't lose that stuff, but also it is the black color, so we end up with the possibility of running all the crazy ass black stuff that does stuff in trash. So discarding the trash is not a big deal when you're in the black color types, because it has all of the recycle that it does, which is super scary, to just enable more of that stuff. And I think it's very easily controlled, and it's super exciting. And if that's what our first leaders of the set do, I'm really excited to see what Shanks. Oh, we get a buggy leader. Oh, it's going to be so good. I can't wait for the buggy leader, and I hope they don't disappoint in that point, in that space. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for you this week. Thank you all for watching this far. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and until next time, peace.